Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to News Dose. Hope everybody's ready for the weekend, TGIF, right? But Hogwarts Legacy, that did drop today for everybody, so I know a lot of you will probably be playing that. Do have fun if you are. Also, the Super Bowl is inbound this weekend. Fly Eagles fly, let's go. And actually, let's hear those Eagle chants in the comments below. Type Fly Eagles fly if you're rooting for the Eagles. Now, if you're rooting for the Chiefs, you might as well just go ahead and see the door. Now, I'm just joking, but we do have a lot to talk about today, including a response from Nintendo regarding the price hike Backlash, and then also it seems like confidence remains high in the Activision Blizzard acquisition eventually passing. Of course, there is a concern about the CMA's provisional findings earlier this week, but Activision has yet to flinch, so we're going to go over all of that today, plus plenty more. In fact, let's just go ahead and get right into it, starting off with a new limited edition PlayStation 5 controller that was surprisingly just announced. I'm not really sure why they waited until last minute, but either way, they just announced a Hogwarts Legacy themed controller. Sony, of course, does have Hogwarts Legacy marketing rights, they have exclusive content, and now they're also pairing that with this brand new limited edition controller here. I'd actually say that this has been one of the smarter marketing deals that they've made, considering just how popular this game is already proving to be. As for the controller itself, though, it's actually a pretty decent looking design. At the very least, I do like it more than the God of War Ragnarok controller that they released last year. I thought that was a pretty weak design for such an important game, but I do think that this one looks a little bit better. It definitely has a little bit more of a design to it. I like the colors overall, but if you are interested in this one, it's going for $80 and will release on February 28th. It went live earlier today on PlayStation Direct and sold out almost immediately, so I'd say if you are interested, do keep an eye out and just order it as fast as you possibly can when it goes live, hopefully again. Now, we also got an update for a couple Sega games that released late last year. They did just release their fiscal year report, and, you know, it's just kind of amusing because Sega's kind of they're a little bit of a strange company, but, I mean, to nobody's surprise, except to maybe Sega themselves. The Persona 5 Royal Ports was a resounding success. As you can see here, it's already sold 1.3 million units worldwide, and this doesn't even include the Xbox Game Pass deal. Who knows what type of money they made off of all that, or how many people played it on there. Either which way, though, no shocker here, the Persona 5 Royal Ports were a resounding success, and I do hope that this proves to Sega and Atlus once and for all that the Persona series needs to remain multi-platform going forward. Don't make fans wait years and years for these ports. Make Persona 6 available on all platforms day one, because they do have a series here that can stand toe-to-toe with some of the most recognizable JRPGs, including Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy. So do not hinder this series by keeping it exclusive to one single platform. Expose it to as many fans as you possibly can and grow the series the way that it truly deserves. Either way, fans definitely won here. Big congrats to Persona 5 Royal. The other update, though, and this is even more interesting to me, and that's that Sonic Frontiers has already sold 2.9 million units worldwide. Now, to be fair, it went on sale like almost immediately, but either way, Sonic Frontiers is probably the most hyped up 3D Sonic game that I can remember in well over a decade. It, of course, is a big shakeup for the franchise, being this more open world experience, and I personally really liked it. I got the Platinum Trophy for it, and it's probably the most fun I've had with a Sonic game since probably Sonic Adventures 2 back on the Sega Dreamcast. Seriously, go play Frontiers if you like Sonic, or really if you just like 3D collectathon platformers. It's just a good, solid game. But with that, I was curious as to how it would perform, and well, it looks like the big shakeup paid off for Sega here. 2.9 million sold in just a few months. Even if it was on sale pretty early on, that's pretty good for a 3D Sonic game, especially after some of its previous entries were met with mixed results. So big congrats to Sega here, and also to Sonic fans as well, because it looks like the Sonic franchise is back on track and it has a bright future ahead of it. Speaking of Sega, though, we might as well just go and talk about their old arch nemesis, one of the most fierce rivalries of all time, being none other than Nintendo. Now, Nintendo has had a very interesting week. On one part, it was very exciting with the Direct and Metroid Prime. It's honestly, I think, been a fun week overall, but they've also been facing some backlash with their decision to increase the price of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom to $70. This change seems to have caught a lot of fans off guard. So, okay, I mean, on one side, PlayStation, Xbox, and several other publishers have already kind of made that shift, but at the same time, their excuse has kind of been, well, we have these next-generation consoles, so you're at the very least going to get better visuals, performance, and all that type of stuff with the additional $10. However, when it comes to the Switch, Nintendo doesn't really have that same excuse. Instead, we're talking about a 6-year-old console that some believe is even a little outdated. And now, all of a sudden, after all these years, they're playing around with the pricing, and we get this $70 game. So yeah, it seems like there's a lot of fans out there that are surprised in that sense that they would do something like this before that eventual Switch successor. Well, Nintendo has now responded to some of the backlash by reassuring fans that this pricing is not the new standard for Nintendo games going forward. They simply said this in response to being asked if this is the new trend going forward, and they said this: "No, we determine the suggested retail price for any Nintendo product on a case-by-case basis." Now, they were also asked on what the reasoning for $70 is, and, well, they essentially sidestepped that question by basically saying the exact same thing. You can see here they once again said, "We determine the suggested retail price for any Nintendo product on a case-by-case basis." So that's kind of the strange part here. They're being vague about the situation, and if anything, I'd say that just kind of begs the question: what Nintendo games qualify for the $70 price tag? I mean, you have something like Pikmin 4, and that's being sold for $60, and then you have Zelda Tears of the Kingdom at $70. So the way I kind of look at this is that Nintendo is basically experimenting with the $70 price tag, and what better way to do that than with one of their most hyped up games ever made? Zelda is a massive, beloved franchise, so Nintendo knows it's going to do well regardless of its higher price. In other words, they're going to go in and increase the price and maximize profits because they know it's going to sell one way or the other. I mean, I don't think that $10 additional is going to slow down its hype even in the slightest, and I think Nintendo, they clearly realize this. I mean, yes, fans, they're not necessarily going to be thrilled about it. There's going to be some backlash, as we're currently seeing. But Breath of the Wild, this is a game that is nearing 30 million units sold. So we know that Tears of the Kingdom will sell incredibly well despite its higher price tag here. PlayStation has already kind of proven fans are willing to pay that extra $10 for beloved franchises like God of War. And in this case, I mean, we're talking about Zelda here. This is one of the most beloved franchises ever, coming off the most successful entry for them ever. Yeah, hype is absolutely through the roof when it comes to this game. Where something like Pikmin 4, this is a smaller series for them in terms of how much it sells. So that would be more of a gamble for them and could ultimately hurt it in the long run if they were to increase its price. Pikmin doesn't have the same fan base as something like Zelda. Going forward, though, despite what Nintendo's saying here, I just kind of go in with the expectations that their big releases will be $70 going forward, especially when their eventual successor comes out. As an example, I wouldn't be shocked if Metroid Prime 4 is also a $70 game. But let me know what you all think about this entire situation. Is it something that bothers you, or are you okay paying that $70 price for something like Zelda Tears of the Kingdom? Also, let me know if you were previously going to purchase it and are now backing off because that price increase. I would very much like to hear if any of you all are in that boat. Now, we also got another update for the Activision Blizzard acquisition. This past week, there's been a lot of concern about the CMA's provisional findings as they're very much against the buyout as it currently stands. Now, the thing about this situation is that the CMA, unlike other regulators, is the one legitimate roadblock for Microsoft that could be troubling for them if they were to block the deal. Now, the reason for this is because of how the CMA works. Of course, we have the FTC, and they're making a big hoopla and everything, but that doesn't really matter as much because Microsoft has a good case that could hold up in court based on the facts alone. The same thing could really be said with the EU if they were to oppose the deal as well. Microsoft has a good case. In the UK, however, things are just a little bit different. See, unlike other regulators, the CMA doesn't offer companies legal recourse in the same way. Microsoft could appeal the decision, and then eventually it would just bounce right back to the CMA, and in all likelihood, they would just come to the same conclusion. It's actually a really messed up system when you think about it. It gives the CMA way too much power, and you can even view this as kind of corrupt to a degree, but there would be a little bit more finality if the CMA were to oppose the buyout. Now, does that necessarily mean the deal is dead if it doesn't go through in the UK? Not necessarily, but things could get extremely ugly if this were to happen. If Microsoft remains committed to the buyout even after something like that, they might go on a full offensive approach and put a lot of pressure on the CMA and the UK if it comes down to it. There's really no guarantee that Microsoft would back down based solely on the CMA's decision. However, regardless of all that, that's simply speculation, but a new report did reveal that Activision remains confident in the buyout. This was posted up by Yahoo Finance, where it says, sources said confidence remains high inside Activision that the UK's Competition and Market Authority, CMA, which sources told Fox Business is the only regulatory body that really matters in the merger case, will look at the numbers and realize the acquisition will not hurt gamers, despite what the CMA alleged on Wednesday. So yeah, I mean, even after everything that's happened this week, Activision remains confident that the buyout will indeed pass. As I said the other day, they do seem relatively calm about the provisional findings, and one reason for that might be because the CMA themselves did note that they were open to the idea of Microsoft offering remedies. That is the next part of this process, to just kind of see if Microsoft can alleviate any concerns that they might have. Despite what some people online are claiming, though, the door is certainly not closed completely yet. It, however, might be more difficult, but with all that, they will present their case to the CMA in the coming weeks, and we'll kind of see what happens with all of that. In the meantime, Bobby Kotick, the CEO of Activision, believes that Sony is trying to sabotage the deal, and yeah, I think no matter what happens going forward, Activision and Sony's relationship will never be the same after this. Let's go take a look at the poll of the day, though, where I asked you all, do you think the Nintendo Switch is their best console ever? I mean, yes, it's their best-selling console ever, only behind the DS, but as you can see, most of you all do, in fact, believe that the Switch is their best, with 50% of you saying yes, 29% of you said no, and then 17% said no, but it's close. So there you go. This is actually quite significant. I mean, Nintendo has some of the most beloved platforms ever made. Whether that be the GameCube, the Nintendo 64, the Super Nintendo, whatever. I mean, they have a lot of great consoles from the past. So to see the Switch come out here as the winner, that's no small feat. And I'll even say for myself, I do agree. Now, I did grow up as a Nintendo kid in the 90s. I am 31 years old today, so, I mean, I grew up playing the Super Nintendo, the Nintendo 64, GameCube, Game Boy Advance, etc., etc. And while, yes, I love all those consoles, I too will vote for the Switch here. Now, the reason I say that is because, again, despite me liking a lot of those past consoles, the thing about the Switch is that it does offer a lot of the games from those past consoles with the ability of playing them in handheld mode. But it also has a lot of great brand new games. It's a beast when it comes to independent games. And then on top of that, the Switch has pretty good third-party support as well. So I just feel like if I could only own one Nintendo console today, I go with the Switch because it just offers a little bit of everything. Interestingly enough, though, most of the comments actually seemed more in favor with other Nintendo consoles. I didn't actually see too many of you say exactly why you chose the Switch, so I'd still like to hear from you all. Let me know why you chose the Switch in the comments below. Anyways, though, that's it for this episode, but if you liked the video, don't forget to bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.